Hi, welcome to Hormone Heaven. This is Dr. Angel. I'm a thyroid and perimenopause expert. This podcast is for women who are struggling with thyroid or perimenopause and are looking for natural solutions. It's a micropod because I like to give quick, bite-sized information that you can implement immediately in your daily life. Please keep in mind, I'm a doctor, but I'm not your doctor, so please check with your healthcare provider before beginning or ending any supplements or medications. Today, I recommend that you visit the show notes or alternativehealthwithangel.com and click on podcast because I have two handouts that are associated with today's podcast that you're going to want to have that gives you more of a visual of what we're going to be talking about. Let's get started. Today, we're talking about cycle syncing. Cycle syncing refers to the practice of adapting your habits to fit the four phases of your menstrual cycle. For instance, you may alter your workout routine or alter how you eat based on what hormonal changes your body is going through at that time each month. Cycle syncing goes wonderfully with seed cycling. And I talked about seed cycling back in episode 7. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to that as well. But there will also be links to a seed cycling and a cycle syncing handout in the show notes so you can have a visual. And that's what I was talking about earlier. So make sure to check that out as well. Now, I realize that not everyone has 28-day cycles. So, for those who don't have cycles or those who aren't consistent, you can still work through this cycle syncing by using the new moon or the full moon, which I will discuss as we go through this. So, the first thing we need to know is that we have 4 cycles in each month. Isn't that crazy? So, we go through the menstrual phase, that's day 1 to day 5. And that is when we really need estrogen. And that is when the new moon is happening. Then, the follicular phase is days 6 to 14. And that is again when we need more estrogen. But then when we get to the ovulatory phase, this is when we may get pregnant. That's days 15 to 17. That's when progesterone kicks in. And that's also when we see the full moon. And as we go through this, you'll see how this all comes together. And then our last phase that we go through the month is the luteal phase. We usually think of that as being PMS. And that's days 18 to 28. And that's progesterone as well. So we have all these different phases, these 4 different phases. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through these phases and talk about how you respond, how your energy is going to be during that phase, how your food, how you want to eat, how you want to focus, how you want to move, all through those different phases. Now, for clarification, when I talk about days of your cycle, I want you to think the first day of your cycle is the first day you bleed. Or if you don't have a bleed, then the first day of your cycle is the new moon. Okay. And that's easy to find. You just get on Google and it'll tell you. So we're going to start with the menstrual phase or the new moon. This is day 1 of your first bleed and about to day 5. So the first 5 days of your cycle. Usually that's how long our period lasts as well. Our energy is going to be low during this time period. We're going to want to look to eat things like red meat, fatty fish, shellfish, beets, mushrooms, greens, seaweeds. All those foods are very nourishing and they're putting iron and minerals back into our body that we're losing because of that period that we're on, right? So we want to replace all that good nutrients back into our body. This is also, if you're seed cycling, you want to start with the flax seeds and pumpkin seeds because those really support that estrogen during this time frame. Now, we think about putting that good food in, but we also need to look at to reduce some things. And the things we need to reduce are caffeine, alcohol, greasy food, and processed food. And why is that? Well, during this time frame, it's a detoxing time frame. We're literally shedding a lining. So we're detoxing. And our liver has so much to do with hormonal everything, how they make hormones, how we detox, everything. And so if we can keep that liver clean through this time phase, it really helps us to detox. And things like caffeine, alcohol, and greasy and processed foods are not good for the liver. They're actually clogging the liver up. Now, I will say a caveat for caffeine. If you're drinking it without any added sugars, you're probably okay to about 16 ounces a day. You just want to make sure you're doing it with protein or fat because when you do caffeine on an empty stomach, it raises your blood sugar levels, which again will cause issues with your hormones. So caffeine is the one you can kind of have a little bit of caffeine during this time frame, but you want to make sure it's with either some protein or fat and not on an empty stomach. Okay, so during this menstrual phase, you want your movement to be low intensity as well. So think like stretching, walking, yoga, or even just resting. But you do want some sort of movement during this time frame because again, that helps with that detoxing phase. Now, focus during the menstrual phase is going to be about shedding as well, about detoxing as well. Think about things you want to get rid of. This may be a good time to clean out your closet. We're detoxing inside as well as out. So go through your kitchen cabinets and clean out the bad food, things like that. That's a good time to do in those first 5 days of the month. Okay, so now we're going to go into the follicular phase. This is about days 6 to 14. And this is when our energy really starts stepping up here. We also have less of an appetite because our body is getting ready for pregnancy, or at least it thinks it is. And it needs to put that energy towards pregnancy rather than worrying about us digesting food, because digesting food takes up so much energy. So during this time frame, you want to eat lightly, right? We want to do things like raw fruits and veggies, lean proteins, fermented foods, because it's got all that good probiotics in it. Our movement in this follicular phase is going to be real high intensity. So think like intervals, jogging, hiking, cardio, real heavy strength training. Those are all really good for this time frame. It's also a really productive phase when you're thinking about your focus. So if there's a big project that you want them to get done, those days 6 to 14 of your cycle are a great time to tackle that project. Now, next, we go into the ovulatory phase. This also corresponds with the full moon. Your body is likely to become pregnant during this time frame if that's something you want. So think days 15 to 17. What's really cool about this time frame, though, it's only a few days, but your energy is at its highest point during the whole month. So you're going to get a lot done. The other thing really cool is you tend to be much more outgoing and much more confident during this time frame. If you've got some speaking engagements or networking events you want to go to, this is a really good time. If you can scheduling them during this time frame, it'd be great for you. If you're a salesperson, you're probably selling a ton during this time frame. You also want to eat like colorful fruits and vegetables during this time frame. Think of red cabbages, purple cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, nuts, and avocados to get that really good fat. So not only are you vibrant and outgoing, but your food is going to be that colorful and outgoing as well. And if you're seed cycling, that is when you bring in the sunflower and sesame seeds at this point, because it's going to help support that progesterone. And since our energy is at its highest at this point, we want to make sure during these 3 to 4 days that we really do the highest exercise we can do as well. So really just going all out, intervals, running, cycling, sprinting. But again, it's only for a few days. So it's not like you have to continue doing this, but it's a great time to do that if you're really looking for that. Our focus is magnetic during this time frame. So think about you're really outgoing, you're really confident, things are going to come to you. So maybe think about things you want. And for some people, that may be a baby. For other things, it could be other things. But think about this is the time really you want things to come to you because you're so magnetic. Now, finally, we go into days 18 to 28 of your cycle, and that's the luteal cycle. This is also when we discussed earlier PMS. So a lot of things are happening during this time frame. Our energy is lower and we have more cravings at this time frame, but our body also thinks it could be potentially pregnant. So we want to make sure that we eat regular balanced meals during this time frame. Balance is important because we want to really keep our hormones level during these days 8 to 28, the luteal phase, the PMS phase, because there is a lot of movement there with our hormones. They're kind of going up and down. So regular balanced meals. Protein for breakfast is particularly important at this time frame. You want to get 15 to 30 grams of protein from days 18 to 28. You actually want to do it all month long, but it's particularly important during this time frame. Make sure to include your healthy fat with that too. So like maybe you eat some eggs and avocado. So you really want to do some balanced meals at this time frame to keep those hormones balanced. You also want to avoid the sugar, greasy foods, alcohol, dairy. All of those actually make us crave more of them. So if you start eating the sugar or greasy foods, alcohol, dairy during this time frame, you're just going to want more and more and you're going to overindulge. So if you can kind of just keep them out during this time frame, you're not going to want to indulge as much. You also want to keep your movements a little bit moderate. Think Pilates, yoga, light cardio, light strength training. Everything is more about nurturing and rest on our focus. We want to focus on nurturing and rest rather than going all out. During the luteal time, days 18 to 28, it's a great time to schedule your self-care appointments. Your body really needs it during that time frame. So that's if you want to kind of match everything together, that's a great way to do it. But when you get in line with your cycle, whether it's through seed cycling or cycle syncing or both of them combined, magical things really happen. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you can get the podcast as soon as they are available, and tell your friends about it and leave a review if that makes you happy. It would make me happy. If you have any questions, please go to alternativehealthwithangel.com or check out the show notes link in the description. And remember, do not make any changes with medications or supplements without speaking to your healthcare provider. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, and it's not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.